I came across this clip yesterday on Instagram from Now This, a self-described progressive media organization. They took a clip from an interview that Stephen Colbert did with Kamala Harris. And I want you to listen to this clip because it has me saying something I thought I would never say. I agree with Kamala Harris. But after you watch the clip, I'm going to tell you why I agree with Kamala Harris, because it might not be what you expect.
For now, I don't want to go back in the system. I think it's broken. And I always believed that as fragile as our democracy is, our systems would be strong enough to defend our most fundamental principles. And I think right now that they're not as strong as they need to be, and I just don't want to, for now, I don't want to go back in the system. I want to travel the country, I want to listen to people, I want to talk with people, and I don't want it to be transactional where I'm asking for their vote.
Now, I'm not sure when this interview between Stephen Colbert and Kamala Harris took place, but I'm here to tell you this is yet another example of why I am glad that his show is being canceled, because talk show hosts today have come a long way from Johnny Carson. Talk show hosts today are nothing more than political mouthpieces for the left and leftist propaganda. But I agree with Kamala Harris. I agree that the principles of our constitutional republic, and that's what we are, a constitutional republic, not a democracy, are being threatened. But she and the Democratic Party are the reason that the very foundations of what I would call a free and fair election are being threatened. Need I remind you, ladies and gentlemen, it was the Democratic Party, the party of former President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that decided to effectively install Kamala Harris as the new candidate when they saw that Joe Biden wasn't getting the traction that they had hoped. And they didn't get the traction that the Democratic Party hoped because we as the American people saw Joe Biden's incompetence. We saw on live television for over 4 years how incompetent he was and that he didn't know where he was half the time. I don't know who was running the show, but it clearly wasn't Joe Biden. And so the Democratic Party, mid-election, instead of letting their electors choose the candidate, they decided, Kamala Harris was the VP, so we'll just make her the candidate now, mid-election. Does that sound like a free and fair election to you? It doesn't me. That sounds like something that would happen in a communist dictatorship when the government just decides, we'll just change it. We'll just change the candidate. That doesn't sound like something that would be in the interest of the Democratic voter or any American voter for that matter. And I would be calling it out if the Republican Party did the same thing. It is a disgrace to say that we have free and fair elections when one major party in this country decides to change up the candidate mid-election. That's not free, that's not fair, and that's certainly not what the founders had in mind when they gave us the Constitution. You know, that very important document, that document that lays out how government is supposed to operate, that's not constitutional. And then you want to gaslight the American people and say that our principles are being threatened? Yeah, by people that do things like that. You are part of the problem, Kamala Harris. Your party is part of the problem. And believe you me, I have plenty of problems with the Republican Party. But they're not changing up the candidate mid-election. That is not something that should be happening in America. And that's why I'm talking to you about it today. Because this should be lit up all over the country. Not just at election time, but we should be talking about it all 4 years, because if you're not paying attention to what happens after you elect a candidate and what they're doing, what they're saying, and holding them accountable, and then you're just going to the voting booth every 2 or 4 years, depending on what election we're talking about, and mindlessly voting for whatever party, you're part of the problem. Hold these people accountable. This sort of stuff should not be happening in the United States of America today. And so it is important that I talk to you about this and remind you that we have a major party in this country who did effectively install a candidate. That's not something that should happen in a free society. That is not something that a free people should allow to go on. We are the ones who should be choosing the candidates. We are the ones who should be choosing our elected officials and holding them accountable, and not letting people like Kamala Harris go on late night talk shows and then gaslight us into saying that our principles are being threatened. They are not being threatened by a party who wants to do things the fair way. And like I said, this is not a Republican or Democrat issue. I would be calling this out if the Republican Party was doing the same thing. But you are part of the problem, Kamala Harris, and your party. If you want to lecture us, try cleaning out your own house first, instead of looking down your elitist nose at the American people and then telling us that America is in danger. You're part of the problem. Be part of the solution. Instead of trying to lecture the American people, I hope that Kamala Harris goes the way of the dinosaur and goes away completely. I hope, for our sakes, that she does not run for political office anywhere in this country anymore. But the Democratic Party is the one with the problem, not the American people. And as an American, I'm concerned that any party would do this in the United States. This is not something that we should allow. And so I thought that I would bring it to your attention, because I'm tired of the Democratic Party in particular trying to gaslight the American people. If things don't go their way, they want to gaslight us and say that our country is broken. Yeah, you're contributing to it. If you agree with me that this is something that should not happen in a free country, in a free and fair election, do me a favor. Like this video so that it helps out the algorithm. Share it so that more people see it. And subscribe to my channel for more content. Because over here, we are building a freedom-loving army. An army and an audience that I believe will have the power to change this country for the better.